Good morning. It's Thursday, and I'm going to bring the guys in here. There's George and Sean. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
You guys all set for today?
Yeah. How are you?
You didn't sound very enthusiastic, Sean.
Well, no, my iPad was looks like it was ready to fall, so I was trying to grab it.
Well, that's better than what I did. I put my second laptop up so I could read the comments and pop out chat, and then I can't find where to turn the volume down. So I had double volume on here, and I was trying to hurry up. So that's why I was kind of weird.
So we both had a little difficulties. There you go.
Yeah, I haven't used my Chromebook in a long time, and I couldn't remember where the volume control was, so I just slammed it shut real quick. Well, we got a really good guest today. We got Trevor Loudon, so we're gonna get him on real quick. But I'm gonna open up with prayer real quick here. So because I forgot last week. I think what day was it? Like Thursday or Friday? I forgot to do it. Nobody reminded me either.
Yeah, I know. I thought you forgot, and I figured I didn't want to say it, so I just let it go.
What a crap that was.
You should have said it.
Yeah, right. Good one, Sean. That was good. I was paying attention. Yeah.
All right, this one. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath. That's Ephesians 4:26. So the next time you're angry, give up your fighting stance and fall to your knees in complete surrender to God. Give up your anger, pain, and hurt to him, and forgive and pray for the person you're angry with. It is impossible to hate someone you continually pray for. Trust God, who is completely righteous, for he promises, I will contend with those who contend with you. And
then hit him.
Huh?
And then hit him.
Yeah, I guess you could. You would, wouldn't you, George?
Mm.
Yeah, but George would hit him with love.
Yeah. Five
good
reasons.
Full of love, right?
Yeah, it's not just hit him.
Okay, I'm sitting here getting Wake Up Patriots in the chat. So there. All right, now I can see it. All right, well, I'm going to bring on Trevor, so he's got the whole hour with us. Good morning.
Hi, guys. Great to see you. Hi, George. Hi, Sean. Hi, Trevor.
Good morning. How are you?
Hey, that beard looks good there, brother.
Yeah, well, I was emulating you, see. I thought you looked so good. I got to do it. I just got to do it.
It's starting to look like Lincoln.
Well, not quite.
Honest Dave with the hat. Give him a hat.
Yeah. Could try that.
How you doing? How's the family doing? Everybody okay?
Oh,
Your
yeah,
son?
we're all good. Yeah, so, we're living down here. I've got a little granddaughter now, and that's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself so the people in the chat and the watching are familiar with you?
Sure. Well, look, you can tell from accent, I'm originally from New Zealand, but I've lived in the States just most of my family's here. My specialty is exposing Marxism, communism, socialism. I did a lot of the original work on Barack Obama, Glenn Beck.
Oh, we lost your volume. Voice. Can you turn your volume up a little bit? We're losing your volume.
Oh, sorry. How's that?
There you go. Now we hear it. I hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to put the mic down. Look, I'll start. My name is Trevor Loudon. I am a New Zealander originally. I live in Florida for about 10 years. My specialty is Marxism. I look at radical movements and how they influence mainstream politics. I did a lot of the original work on Obama, and Glenn Beck used a lot of my material on his famous chalkboards. I've made a couple of movies, Enemies Within, about the communist infiltration of the government, Enemies of the Church, Marxist infiltration of the evangelicals, the Baptists. And I got a whole bunch of books out. The latest one was Kamala Harris's Communist Roots, which is all about the Chinese movement that is the 1980s and gave us Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Andrew Gillum, Stacey Abrams, and run big voter registration operations in America. So, I write books. I do a lot of public lecturing, and I've made films, but My books are all available on Amazon.com. There's about 12 of them there right now, all about American communists and Marxists.
Well, I was telling everybody how when I heard you the first time, which many, many years ago, how you predicted what was going to happen now.
Well, yeah, like I like in 2018, I was telling everybody that Kamala Harris was going to be on the VP ticket, or that people laughed at that.
Yeah.
But then I talked about the massive, before Biden, I talked about there's going to be a massive surge at the border like we have never seen before. I talked about the weaponization, the deep state. The deep state is basically communist. People need to understand that. The deep state started with the Russians and the Chinese many, many years ago. And it's an American thing, but it still has ties to foreign enemies, deep ties to foreign enemies. You know, and the Chinese are working like crazy to get our borders open again, to destroy our military, to destroy our culture, everything from transgenderism to woke sport, to woke churches, to woke businesses. All of that's Chinese. All of the Chinese are doing all of this stuff to weaken us, to bring us to our knees. And they almost, you know, the Chinese are so powerful in this country. They had two hardcore Chinese communists, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz at the head of the Democrat ticket. Two Chinese communists. You know, so that's how powerful the Chinese are here. And just by the way, wasn't it nice of the Chinese to say that if Trump peeled back the tariffs on China, they would stop sending fentanyl to this country?
Yeah.
You know, 80,000 American kids a year dead. They admit they've been sending it.
Yeah.
And they're going to keep doing it. You know, they'll just do it in a more roundabout way. Trump's got to go very hard on the Chinese.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, it's like a terrorist act. I mean, they're trying to kill the American people, you know, even that way, you know.
Well, look, that's 80,000 kids a year are never going to serve in the U.S. military.
That's right.
You know, that's more than died in Vietnam, killed by Chinese fentanyl. Like in China, they execute marijuana dealers, but they give tax incentives to the people who produce the precursors for the fentanyl that they then ship to the Mexican cartels that then sells it to our kids. You know, if that's not a massive crime, you know, you got to remember every time you go to Walmart and buy that Chinese crap, you're subsidizing that.
Would you think that would quantify as like crimes against humanity in the international?
100%. You know, that's a deliberate Chinese policy to kill our kids. If that's not a crime against humanity, I don't know what is.
It reminds you of like the opium thing back in the West when they were building the railroads and everything, and they had all the opium coming over here and stuff. And it's a really insidious way to really, you know, depopulate a country if you do that. They know where our weaknesses are.
Well, they screw up our economy. They cost us lots of money. They kill our kids. They cause massive amounts of grief and medical problems, the costs that go with it, and they make tons of money out of it. It's an ideal crime. And look, a lot of people don't realize the communists have always been heavily involved in the drug market. That really started in the Vietnam War era. But the Cubans, the Chinese, the Soviets, the Czechs, the Bulgarians have all been heavily involved in the drug market, and their South American communist friends, you know, in Peru and Colombia, etc. The FARC guerrillas in Colombia, they make their money selling cocaine to American kids. The Sendero Luminoso terrorists, they were heavily into the cocaine processing business. So drugs is a communist problem, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep,
Well,
we know that very heavily.
Sorry, George, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying that you're 100% right about what they're doing to us. Even with the COVID. I mean, even that. I mean, that was, and they have to pay for all the stuff. I mean, it's terrible.
Well, you know, with the COVID, here's the thing. You know, I think it was in 2019, Trump put tariffs on Chinese goods. Mm-hmm. And the Chinese Xinhua news agency said in response to America's aggression, this is aggressive, right? We're going to declare people's war on the United States. Now, people don't understand what that means. That's a Maoist term for destroying your enemy without fighting conventionally. That's drugs. That's biological warfare. That's illegal immigration. That's propaganda. So then we get the COVID. They spread it here deliberately. They encouraged their people to do international air travel when everybody else was clamping down. They spread it here. They gave us the COVID, and then they managed the response, because you'll find every state that had the harshest lockdowns, the worst oppression, they were all the states with the most Chinese influence, like Tim Walz's Minnesota, Gavin Newsom's California, all the states where the Chinese had the politicians in their pocket and the labor unions under their control to enforce the lockdowns. All the states with the worst lockdowns are the ones with the most Chinese control. Massachusetts, New York, Michigan, Minnesota, California, Oregon, Hawaii, and the states with the least Chinese control, like Florida, had the lightest. So they gave us a disease, then they managed the response to inflict maximum possible damage on our economy. It's complete Chinese from start to finish. We lived for 2.5 years under Chinese political enforcement in our country.
And what's funny is everybody always brings up George Soros, but they don't realize how much the Chinese were involved in this whole situation.
Soros is a cog in the chain, you know,
Yep.
part of the chain, but he's not the top, not even close. It's way bigger.
That's what I tell everybody when I speak. I remember the words you told me, so that's why I bring it up all the time.
Yeah. So we all think about Soros, and he's a bad guy, but he's small change compared to what the Chinese are doing.
Hey, Trevor, you mentioned Marxists, right? And I think people hear that term a lot, but I don't think people really understand what Marxist or Marxism means. Can you just elaborate on that real quick?
Okay. Marxism. We live in a society where we have certain hierarchies mandated by the Bible, coming from God, parent, child, employer, employee, the people are supposed to be sovereign over the government. There's a natural order of life in which we prosper. Well, the devil always wanted to overthrow God's natural hierarchies, to set parents against their children, wives against their husbands, teachers against pupils against students, workers against bosses, races against each other. So Marxism is basically a scientific, it's Satanism with a scientific veneer. Ooh. It is a philosophy of jealousy, resentment, where minority populations or aggrieved people like gays, certain racial groups, their grievances are fostered and exaggerated to turn them into revolutionary fodder. All the Black Lives Matter was a classic Marxist operation, for instance. Yeah. And most of the people marching would have had no idea. That was run out of the Chinese consulate in San Francisco. Black Lives Matter is a Chinese operation. So Marxism is the philosophies of Marx, who preached jealousy and resentment, that the working class should overthrow the bosses. And that's been applied in this century to racial, sexual, gender politics as well. So the transgenders must be over all of us now. The gays must be over. They must overthrow us. The oppressed peoples of color must overthrow the white capitalist hierarchy or whatever. So it's if you go back to the Bible, it's Cain and Abel. The American system was founded on Abel principles. You're the loyal son. You are honest. You are hardworking. You worship God. You are a strong patriotic person, or Marxism is based on Cain, resentfulness, bitterness, rebellion, violence. So Marxism is the philosophies of Marx that are used to overthrow God's natural hierarchies in our society and overthrow the American system. So Marxism is a transgender movement. It's the environmental movement. It's the open borders movement. It's Black Lives Matter. It's woke Hollywood. It's woke sport, where the football teams have got to take the knee to Black Lives Matter and crap like that. All of that is manifestations of Marxism. It's the overthrow of American society, the weakening of American society in every possible way, in every possible direction. It's not just the class struggle. It's transgender politics. It's open borders. It's environmental, making the environment more important than people, for instance. That's all Marxism.
But tell them how long they've been planning this. Remember when you brought that up a long time ago?
At least 100 years.
Yep.
It's a long game.
Yeah. Well. The first look. It's even longer because see, in 1848 in Germany, the Marxists there tried to have a Marxist revolution. Marxist followers tried to do a revolution, and they failed. And thousands of German Marxists had to flee to the United States. And they settled in Chicago and Milwaukee and places like that. And they set up the Socialist Party there. They had socialist mayors in Milwaukee in the 1880s. They set up the American Communist Party in 1919 in Chicago. And so the revolution really started in the 1840s, but it really got going in the 1920s after the Bolshevik Revolution. We almost had a revolution in America in the 1920s. People don't realize this. We had bombings, we had railroad strikes, we had sabotage, we had riots, all inspired by Soviet agitators sent to America by Lenin. And J. Edgar Hoover, in the famous Palmer raids, they rounded up 7,000 Russian Bolsheviks and shipped them all back to Russia. And that stopped the revolution.
Yeah, they even attacked Congress.
Yeah, they did. There was extra, but nobody knows this about American history, And ever since we had there was big unemployment riots in the 1930s, all done by the communists. The communists massively infiltrated the Roosevelt and Truman administrations, gave us the World Bank, gave us the United Nations, gave us a whole bunch of other crap that we're still living with today. Yeah. And in the 60s, we saw the mass Marxist revolution around the Vietnam War. The Black Panthers, all of this stuff, and under Trump, we've seen it resurge again. We saw all the big riots against Trump were all done by Marxists. All the pro-Hamas rallies we've seen lately, all done by Marxists.
Yep.
So we're living in revolutionary times right now, and thank God for Trump being elected, because if he hadn't been, Kamala and Tim would have brought us into Chinese communism very quickly.
Yeah, I tell everybody to look at the protesters. You'll see Chinese people in those protesters.
Yeah,
they're students from China.
Yeah, if you come from China, you come here with the permission of the Chinese Communist Party, whether you're a student or you're an immigrant or whatever. And they have a family back home, and they tell you how to vote here. They tell you which protests to join. They tell you to get involved in the drug trade. They tell you to steal secrets. Yeah. There's been several cases of espionage in the U.S. military lately. Every single one of them was a Chinese-born American soldier or Navy or sailor. Every one of them. Yep. They if you come from China, the Chinese Communist Party has their hooks in you one way or another.
Yeah, they have 360,000 students from China here to all the colleges. It's unbelievable.
Look, the San Gabriel Valley in California has got 1 million Chinese nationals in it. You don't tell me if we get in a war with China, they're not going to cause problems.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit on the Chinese influence on the Vatican?
Oh, that's good.
Well, I've been part of a campaign recently. Pope Francis, who was a Marxist,
Mhm.
I think he'll be a very hot place right now. And I'm sorry to offend a lot of American Catholics, but that's the reality. He was always a Marxist, and I can prove that. Did a deal with the Chinese Communist Party, giving the Chinese Communist Party full control over China's Catholics.
Yeah.
And that meant that basically they changed the Bible. They would take, there's a real Catholic church in China, which is underground, which has been heavily persecuted. But there's a fake Catholic church run by the Chinese Communist Party, the Catholic Patriotic Association. And they're trying to get all the Chinese Catholics into that, because you go there, the Bible's been changed. You're not allowed to have pictures of saints on the wall of your church. You have pictures of Xi Jinping or Mao Zedong. And it's basically a tool of the state. Now they are able to, the Chinese Communist Party chooses the bishops and now the cardinals, and the cardinals can vote for the next pope. The cardinals have actual, Chinese Communist Party cardinals actually have influence in the Vatican. Plus, there's all sorts of financial ties that are going on. But the Pope basically sold China's Catholics to the Communist Party. And that deal is still current. It's been renewed 5 or 6 times. It's still current now. We just started a campaign to try and get the new Pope to abandon that, to just, be the authority over the Chinese Catholics that he's meant to be, not Xi Jinping. But yeah, it's a disgusting situation.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is China has their own state Catholicism rather than regular traditional Catholicism. I remember when they did that with putting everything underground, everything over there, and getting rid of so many of the traditional priests and everything. And it's just such a shame that they have that much influence, even over religion like that, and that they shouldn't, but
that's right.
You wonder, how deep does it go? I mean, with the New World Order, or like the one world religion.
The one world religion. Yeah. So, the same in Russia. The state controls the Orthodox Church in Russia completely. It's a tool of the state. But this is, because the Chinese Catholics and many other Chinese religions are under the control of the state too. So these go to the all these international religious groups. They vote and they push this one world religion stuff. We're all part of the thing. So the long-term goal is a one world religion controlled by the Chinese Communist Party and the globalists. So this all feeds into that. This is part of the building block of that process. And we should never give the state control over our religions. And this is a problem. A lot of American churches get money from the government. As soon as you get money from the government, you're part of the government apparatus. You're not a true church anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they can give you money, they can take it away.
Exactly. Exactly. They've got you on the hook. They've like the mafia. The mafia will loan you money, but don't think there's no hooks that will come with that.
Yeah, that's right. You can do them favors, but don't let them do you favors.
Yeah, I see. We got a couple of questions. We got a couple of questions from the chat. Red Ginger says she'd like to hear Trevor's insights on Chinese purchasing of American farmland. Governors like Nikki Haley sold land to Chinese near U.S. bases. Stupid or sellouts?
Both. Look, in my book, and I taught people should still get this. That's Kamala Harris's communist roots. Like a top Chinese official, he gave this. This is a talk he gave to a meeting. Says not just the land around military bases is a problem. That's an obvious problem. That's just treason to sell land around a base. But this is the worst thing. They talk about our goal is to have land ownership and businesses and other organizations in every congressional district in America, because this will enable us to get the political influence in every congressional district to make the American Congress a subsidiary of the Chinese Parliament. So how this works, okay? So you got a conservative district in, say, Upper Michigan, and so they put a battery plant in there, employs 5,000 people.
That's right.
That congressman, he might be a conservative in that district, will never criticize China again because 5,000 of his people depend on China for their income. You know, look, having Chinese businesses in your state is like having the mafia in your state. They'll sell drugs to your kids. They'll corrupt your politicians. They'll steal your technology. They'll rip the people off, and they'll exert their political influence. This whole thing of Chinese business coming to the country is not to make money. It is to get political influence.
Right.
Well, it's to make money as well. They like our money, but it's to get political influence. Their goal is to completely make the American Congress a subsidiary of their government. So they can do whatever the hell they like, bring as many immigrants as they like, steal as much of our money and our secrets as they like. It's all political warfare. It's all part of people's war. So we shouldn't have any Chinese land ownership in this country. We shouldn't have any Chinese businesses in this country. Well, what I'm talking China, I'm not talking about your local Chinese restaurant. I'm talking,
major industry.
Major Chinese businesses, real estate companies, tech companies. They're going to steal our stuff. They're going to traffic drugs. They're going to launder money. They're going to bribe politicians. And it's a total disaster. We shouldn't allow any of it. And Trump is the first president who's done anything at all about countering this problem.
Even our drugs, our medication is all a big percentage comes from China. They're taking too much control, and they tell people this, and people don't realize it. They have no idea about what the cause of the problem is in America.
Well, they're purposefully tainting the medication that's coming here too.
Yeah.
When they do the testing on it, a lot of it is tainted with different things, foreign things to make you ill.
Yeah, the heavy metals. There's a lot of heavy metals. Even Chinese. People buy the Chinese Himalayan salt because it's healthy or whatever. But it's full of heavy metals. You know, you don't buy any food stuff from China. Don't buy any medicines, and it's almost impossible not to.
Yeah.
But if you can get your stuff not from China, do so. Look, if you can buy an American product, buy an American product. Never buy a Chinese product if you don't have to. Never. You're giving them money and you're buying crap, and you're taking jobs away from American workers who used to work in good factories with good benefits and good health care.
That's right.
You're contributing to the problem. Every time you shop at Walmart, basically, you're contributing to that problem.
Yeah, especially when all the toys were exported to make China make them, and the first time the toys came back was full of lead poisoning. All the kids were getting sick.
But they don't care. They want to poison our kids. They'll make money. They don't care. Look, and they use slave labor too. I had a Falun Gong who he was arrested for being Falun Gong and put in jail for 7 years. And 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, he would work in a factory, not paid, making Christmas decorations to sell at Walmart. And people say, well, he could have, at least he had a job. Well, he didn't get paid. And if he didn't produce his quota every day, he didn't get fed either. So that's how they do it. You work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, producing crap for Walmart. And if you don't produce your 355 Santa Clauses or whatever it is, you don't get a meal that night.
Can you address the Oregon? I'm sorry.
I've got to tell you, and his cellmate at one point was on a death sentence for being a religious guy. And the Chinese authorities came to him and says, we want you to sign a voluntary release that when you die, you're going to release your heart, lungs, liver, whatever for organ transplants.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
He said, screw you. You're going to kill me. You're not getting anything. Well, here's your choice. We kill you quickly or we torture you to death. What's it going to be? How about a signature? That's how they get their voluntary releases.
Wow.
That's how all these organs are voluntarily put on the market. Because if you don't voluntarily sign, you get tortured to death.
That's where I was going with that. Was that the organ trade and how they're actually using live donors and everything too. And they're taking parts out of them before they're, and they're still making them work.
Look, the Chinese system is one of the most barbaric systems ever invented. Scenarios look like little Santa Claus. They are brutal. They are brutal to their own people beyond measure. And they'll be even more brutal to us if they get power over us. I can assure you of that. Their plan, and this was outlined in Unrestricted Warfare, written by 2 Chinese colonels back in 1999. Their plan is to occupy America and destroy the current population here and bring their people to occupy this country.
Right.
And they'll use they talk about they'll use biological warfare, they'll use propaganda, they'll use everything. They'll only fire the guns when we're so weak we can't fire back.
We got them in Cuba. We have them in Canada.
Yes.
We have them in South America. They're in Mexico.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, they established themselves surrounding us, and people don't understand that. Everybody's falling asleep at the wheel here.
Yeah, we have, and we've had up to 100,000 Chinese nationals, young military-age men, come across the border in the last year. They didn't come here to go to Vegas.
Yeah.
The minute hostilities break out, they'll be blowing up bridges, assassinating public officials, releasing biological weapons, whatever it takes to just throw complete chaos. That's 10 divisions, up to 10 divisions of Chinese military already here. They are getting ready for some serious stuff. And they should be the first people to be deported, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't like Trendura, I don't like MS-13, but they're just here to rip us off and kill a few people. The Chinese military-age guys, they're here to destroy the country.
I just wanted to go back to something real quick before we get too far away from it. We were talking about, businesses, Chinese businesses. But look what they've also done in our country. I mean, they bought companies like Smithfield, right? The big bacon company.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, how does that even get allowed to happen?
Well, is food production strategic? I would have thought so. They're buying up farmland and wrecking it by putting their solar panels on it, which destroys the soil.
Yeah, they're big time. You got to get that going too.
And so they're restricting our medicine. They've got control of our medical supplies, a large chunk of our supply. Why would we have let Nazi Germany buy a whole bunch of farmland in America in 1938?
Nope.
They're about to go to war. They'll go to war with us. Well, actual shooting war as soon as it suits them. But they're at war with us now. But because they can throw so much money around, they've got so many of our congressmen on the take. They've got so much of Wall Street on the take. They've got this big constituency in America who wants the gravy train to keep rolling.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Trump has, because Trump has been the only person, and I wish he would go further, but the only person to stand up to China in any way at all. George Bush didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Clinton didn't. Clinton was getting Chinese money. That was what the whole impeachment scandal was about until it turned into a Monica Lewinsky thing. It was about him getting Chinese money for his election.
Well, how about the private police stations that the Chinese are putting out all over the place too?
That's
a good thing.
Yep. There's 3 of them. One in California, 2 in New York.
Oh,
there's got to be more. There's got to be more.
I'm just saying as far as I know.
Yeah, it was about 30 or 40 around the country. And Tim Walsh worked very closely with the one in Minnesota, by the way. Look, that when you say police stations, it's not a place. It's not like it's in the middle of the street with police written on it.
Yeah,
you rock up and you report somebody's burgled your house or something.
They're underground stations.
These are sort of underground. They'll be in business establishments, but they have Chinese operatives in there spying on people, monitoring the local Chinese, making sure the Chinese immigrants are behaving themselves and
that's right,
not getting too Americanized, kidnapping people where necessary. They've done that on several occasions. So they're agents, they're a secret police force operating on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party stationed in up to 30 American cities, and it's still open as far as I'm concerned. At least some of them are still open. So, what would we allow the Gestapo to set up little Gestapo stations in all our big cities? I don't think so. But this is the problem. The Chinese have when we're fighting the Soviet communists, they had to get our people through ideology. They had to find people sympathetic to communism, but because they didn't have much money, to bribe people. The Chinese got all the money in the world to bribe people, so they still get the American communists and a lot of the Democrats because they believe in communism.
Yep.
But they get the conservatives and the businessmen through money. They bribe them. They make them directors of Chinese banks. They like Hunter Biden, all the money he got, but they buy his stupid paintings. They make him a director of a company. They get him in a business deal. He gets $5 million a year for basically brushing his teeth.
Trevor, you're saying Hunter doesn't have business savvy? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think he's just a brilliant businessman. He should, Yeah. Well, would you employ him? Would you employ him to manage your local car dealership?
I wouldn't employ him to be a greeter at Walmart. I don't think.
No, you wouldn't, would you? We're certainly not to run. Look, but that's just how they do it. Like Joe Biden in 2001 offered to the Chinese government to help them negotiate trade deals with the United States, not to help America negotiate with the Chinese, to help the Chinese negotiate with America, using his inside knowledge to basically. So he offered his services to the Chinese in 2001. So it wasn't Hunter that corrupted Joe. Joe corrupted Hunter.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say, right?
No. The Biden family would be nothing without corruption. They've been corrupt from day one.
Look how much their revenue stream is dried up too. That they're touting the old man around now to different interviews and everything because he can't get speaking fees.
Yeah.
But could you address like the movie industry?
He's the real Bernie, like Weekend at Bernie type.
Yeah. Weekend at Joey's, the Bernie sequel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But sorry, Trix, I interrupted.
Oh, you're all right. I just was wondering if you could talk a little bit maybe about how the movie industry is infiltrated too, and that's their way of getting their propaganda across the world.
Yeah.
Well, the Chinese started investigating. Well, they've got a lot of influence in the movie. There's the Screen Actors Guild, the movie unions. The communists have always targeted the movie unions right back in the 50s, But they started to buy up large in Hollywood companies. And the great example of this, we all remember the old movie Red Dawn back from the 80s.
Yep.
So that was about a Soviet invasion of America. And it was based on real Soviet plans. It was based on real war plans. And it was a heroic movie about this young group of young patriots in Colorado who fought back against the Soviet invaders. And, they were a guerrilla force. And it was a great little movie. Well, they tried to make a remake a few years ago, and it was going to be about a Chinese invasion of America. And the Chinese kicked up merry hell and completely scratched it. And then they changed it to a North Korean invasion of America and made a totally crap movie that nobody went to see. That's an example. You cannot make an anti-China movie in Hollywood now.
Well, that's why that actor had to apologize to China in Chinese.
Yeah.
What's his name? Remember? And then the whole thing is the biggest producer of movies is Lionsgate. And Lionsgate is owned by China.
Exactly. So that's a big, they're not going to make pro-American movies. They're not going to make anti-China movies.
Wasn't there supposed to be something in Top Gun too? Top Gun?
He had a Taiwanese.
That's right.
Tom Cruise had a little Chinese emblem on his jacket, a Taiwanese.
They didn't want to see Taiwanese.
They hate Taiwan, so they tried to make, that was a little petty thing, and thank Cruise didn't out of that. But that's the point. Like how many World War II movies make glorifying America's fight against the Nazis and
Japanese, right?
hundreds of them. How many movies do you see about America's fight against communism, or all of most of the Vietnam War movies are actually portraying America's troops in a pretty bad light. They're more sympathetic to the communists, but there's nothing. You cannot make a movie now, saying, well, about some FBI agents tracking down a Chinese spy ring, for instance.
Yeah, that won't happen.
Movie about a future Chinese invasion of America or anything. You can't do that because the Chinese have so much influence in our movie industry that they decide, they veto anything that they do not like. That should shock every American because our movie culture is a big deal. It's a big deal in America. And the other thing they do, the Chinese buy huge amounts of advertising in all newspapers like the Washington Post and that sort of thing. So no newspaper that gets half of its revenue every year from Chinese advertising is going to run stories against China.
Right.
This is another way they influence the public perception.
Hey, Trevor, a good question I got for you is, all the books that you wrote, I read a few of them. What is the best book you think is one of your best?
That is the best.
I didn't get that one yet.
No, get it. Look, because it's not just about Kamala. It's the Chinese started infiltrating the Democratic Party back under Jesse Jackson in the 1980s, the Rainbow Coalition. They gave us Obama. They gave us Andrew Gillum. They gave us Stacey Abrams. Kamala Harris is their project. She's completely their project. Same Walsh. The head of the Christian anti-communist crusade, a guy called David Noble, who's been writing about communism for 60 years, he called this the book of the century. That was the book of the century. So it's way beyond just Kamala. It's the movement that made Kamala and the movement that will make the next Democratic candidate.
Oh, I think she'll be in there. I believe so. I think they'll push her up there.
Well, they're pretty try and make. They've invested a lot in her. They're going to try and use her maybe for governor of California. She may run again. But I wrote another book called White House Reds, and I focused on the Democratic candidates of 2020. And of the 11 running by the beginning of 2020, 10 of them were Marxists. And that's Joe Biden, that's Amy Klobuchar, that's Deval Patrick, that's obviously Bernie Sanders.
What about Reagan? What's his name? Reagan?
There's one of them too.
That's it.
That's another book, Security Risk Senators. There's 2 books in that series, no profile, 30 currently serving US senators and their communist backgrounds. So this is deep. And I've got another series on the congressmen as well called House Un-Americans. But people can get those on Amazon. They're all Trevor Loudon, Amazon. All my books come up, or they can go to my website, trevorloudon.com.
And they have movies. You have your movies too.
Yeah, my movies are there as well.
Excellent. Yep.
And Enemies Within the Church. Every Christian should see Enemies Within the Church.
Yes, I showed that movie.
You're going to a Marxist church. But yeah, that's the book I'm proudest of. That is.
I'll get it.
400 pages, 50 pages of references, tons of illustrations, documents, screenshots, the whatever. As a foreigner, I don't come to another country and tell people their presidential candidate is a traitor unless you've got some pretty good evidence to back it up. But Book of the Century, this guy called it, not Book of the Year, Book of the Century. That's what he called it.
Wow, that's a good. That's a good.
We'll put it. That's it.
Yeah, but that's the one I'm proudest of. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you can't get a better endorsement than that. The Book of the Century.
I'll tell you something about him. When I first met him, I had I was at an event and he spoke and he scared the crap out of me because of all the signs that he put out that a lot of people didn't realize that how much people were falling asleep. And for Trayvon coming from New Zealand to explain to us what we're falling asleep about, it's unbelievable. I mean, if you ever find out if he's speaking someplace, people should go and hear him because he's amazing, a great speaker. You know, and I know you a long time, Trevor. You know, we got
Yeah, a few years back in in Northern Florida,
yeah,
Tampa. There, look, I know you've been to many of my meetings. I've met you many times at events and holding signs out there for Trump and all that kind of thing. But
George's a Trump guy.
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of, But I've certainly stumped at a lot of. I've probably spoken to 1,000 groups around the country, and I've campaigned for Trump in every election. So it's not, and it's not that there's some things I don't disagree with him. There absolutely are, but look, he has been the best president this country's seen for a very, very long time. There's no question.
100%, 100%.
No question. You can't deny that.
Mhm.
And but I want him to succeed, and I want him to set up the country for another 8 years after that. But this is what I'm telling people right now. A lot of us went to sleep in 2020. 2016. Trump's in office. Everything's cool. Don't worry about it. Let's just go play golf. Let's go fishing, whatever. And the Democrats come back and stole it. Well, the Chinese and the Democrats came back and stole it. And we got our noses rubbed in it like puppies who saw the carpet. We had to put up 4 years of that traitor Biden, just looking at his face, 4 years. So God granted us another miracle, and he got in office. But look, he's got a three seat majority in the House. 3.
Right. Yep.
Okay. And I can tell you the story why it's only 3. The Chinese organized that. But, traditionally the midterms goes against the party in power. Traditionally. The odds are high that Trump could lose that majority. There'll be immediate impeachments.
Yes, there will.
Will slow down to a trickle, and they'll do everything they can to destroy the president. We have got another year and a half really of good free time where a lot can get done. But all of us should be getting involved in local politics, local Republican Party or the local conservative group, Trump group, or whatever, to make damn sure, exactly, get involved in George's group if you live locally. But the point is, we got to take the midterm super seriously.
Yeah.
We got to hold everything we got, and we got to defy the trends, and we got to take seats. Because if we don't, the president's going to spend the last 2 years of his term
fighting,
embroiled in bloody impeachments after impeachment. They won't care, and it'll just be a disaster.
MAGA has to get out and vote for these people that are true conservative and constitutionalists, because half of these assholes that are in there now, it's unbelievable. I mean,
well, look, lot of Republicans are just Democrats in drag. It's not just voting Republican. You got to vote conservative, patriotic, MAGA, all of that. But I'm saying everybody needs to get involved, because this is what I sincerely believe. God gives us all gifts, and some of us have great gifts and great talent. Some of us have more moderate gifts, and the rest of us are Democrats, right? Okay, that's but
some of us have the big guy.
We got the big guy. That's his role. Trump's got a role. Certain leaders have got roles, but God cares about what all of us do.
That's right.
How many times did God save a city because of 6 righteous men or 4 righteous men or something? It matters more to God that an average talented person commits himself to saving the country than some flashy leader does whatever. Right. It's every single one of us counts. Every single one of us has a role to play. We all remember George Washington, and we all remember Benjamin Franklin. But how many farmers, and blacksmiths and fishermen took up guns and
That's
fought
right.
for the revolution.
That's where the 3%. Yeah, that's where the 3% came from. It was
3%.
3% of the 13 colonies that
Yeah.
stayed behind to fight.
So
I
that-
always say the answer to 1984 is 1776.
yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. It is. That spirit of 70-76, led by the Black Robe regiments, the past.
That's right. Big important part. The churches.
Very
Yeah.
important part, but that's the thing. You know, there's no way that American patriots should have won that war.
Yeah.
Poverty-stricken farmers
Mhm.
with no money who fought the world's greatest military empire, and they won. And how many miracles happened? You know, the famous dog that came down on New York Harbor just at the right time to save George Washington's troops. You know, there were many miracles. The bullets that went through in the French Indian War, the bullets that went through George Washington's tunic,
Yep. Right. Yep.
but never through him. You know, there were miracles there, but miracles happen because ordinary people do what is right.
Look what happened with President Trump, the assassination Temple and Butler. It
That-
was
Yeah.
at the time, the 6/11, you're talking about Ephesians 6:11, about protecting yourself against the evilness. Put the armor of God on. And that's exactly what happened at the time that he got shot with 6/11.
Look,
It's freaky.
if anybody can claim that wasn't a miracle, you're a total cynic. You know?
We witnessed divine intervention right there in front of our eyes.
Look, absolutely. But this is
Witnessed
the
it.
thing. We saw that bullet hit Trump's ear. It could have gone a foot wide. It could have hit him in the head. It could have done anything, but it went through the ear, drew a little bit of blood, gave him the opportunity to go down and come up, fight. We'll remember that for
Forever.
a brave man died that day. Corey died on the ground, shielding his family as any man should do. The message from that day to me was that God does not want this country lost, but we must be willing to sacrifice.
Amen.
Not just President Trump, all of us must be willing to do whatever it takes to save this country. That's
Exactly. Everybody does a little bit, and that little bit will add up into something really huge. But everybody has to take action.
Spiritual force, you know. Like, see, this is how I see it. You know, when your grandfathers and great grandfathers or uncles were sitting on barges off Normandy beaches, waiting to storm open Nazi machine guns on open beaches, I don't think those boys were talking about baseball and girls.
Mhm.
You know, they were praying because they knew that their faith, even if they'd never been to church in their life, they knew that their faith was going to give them the courage they needed to do what they had to do. Courage is proof of faith.
Mhm.
If we show courage, that proves to God that our faith is real and that God will honor that.
Mhm. Agree.
Just like
100%.
honor David when he fought Goliath. You know, how much faith did David have to stand there when everyone was running the other way with a little bit of string and a bloody rock to throw at Goliath? How much faith did he have to give him the courage he needed that day?
To take him out, yeah.
That's why I say everybody counts, because your courage proves to God that you have faith, and that pleases God. And he's going to favor a nation of faithful people over a hedonistic, cowardly nation every single time. We need God's help here, but we're not going to get that if we're cowards and lazy.
That's right. Mhm. I agree, 100%. I never forget a World War II veteran. I went to his birthday, his 90th. It's a long time ago. His 90th birthday, and he said to me, I had to make a speech for him and give him an award and stuff. And he turned around and said, so he spoke, and he turned around and told me this. He says, when I hit that beach, I didn't know if I was going to see my 18th birthday, and that hit me like a rock.
Yeah. Greatest generation.
Yeah, well, you think about that, you know, kids off farms, you know, kids just out of high school, You know,
Right.
the whole world is on their shoulders. If they weren't powered by faith and courage, I don't know what they were powered by, because that was there, and a lot of them sacrificed, a lot of them died. But what would you rather be, you know, in the day of judgment? Would you rather be that 18-year-old kid who died face down in a pool of blood on Omaha Beach? Or would you rather be this mega pastor today who tells his flock not to get involved in politics because it's beneath them? Who do you think God honors God more?
That's what we tell people. We tell the pastors, stop worrying about the power of the purse.
Yeah.
Preach what you're supposed to preach. It tells you that's how the Constitution was based upon.
Well, that's right. If you believe what you say you believe, you're not going to be scared of the health department or
That's
the
right.
IRS or not being invited to the pastor's picnic.
That's why I didn't get the vax. I believed, and so did a lot of people believed that about the vax, and that was the intuition from the blessing that we had. That's what me personally, but I don't feel. I mean, how can I say that? Even if you took the vax, in that chat and everything else, I don't hold you. It's just a thing that I felt, because I never trust what the government says, as I learned from you, Trayvon. Trevor, the things that I listened to you speak, and I understood all the stuff that you put out there to make us understand, and people have to listen, and that's what we try to tell people, is to listen, especially the guests that we have on these shows, about how important and especially you to come from a different country, to make us understand about how we're being attacked that people don't realize. And I appreciate you being here.
Well, it's an honor to be here. You know, like I came to America because we owe America. You know, my country was saved in World War II by your uncles and grandfathers and great grandfathers. But we're all in this together. If America falls, you can forget New Zealand or Australia or anywhere else.
This is the last stand.
This is the last stand here. Freedom is going to be restored to the world from America. And I think Florida is a very important part of that. Very important part.
We have a lot of guns here.
That's
and ammo.
Yeah, you know, America's got that tradition of fighting for its freedom. No other country, Western country, really has that to the same degree. And so, look, this is a favored nation. This is God's hope for the world. This country.
Yeah, look how we've been blessed. We've been blessed a lot. With everything that we discovered and stuff like that, it's big.
And that blessing carries an obligation. That's what we can't forget. You know.
Well, he gives it, and he can take it away, as the saying goes.
And he expects us to use it for what is right, not just to fritter all this great privilege away. All these pastors who have 3 cars and live in a nice church and don't say a darn thing about trying to save America, don't lead their flock at all. They're sinning. That's a sin of omission. That is James 4:17. But he who knows the right thing to do but does not do it, for him it is a sin. If you're telling your people not to work to save this country, you are sinning.
That's right.
And you ain't, you know, you're living the best you live right now, because it ain't going to look good for you in the future. This is saving America. Saving this country is the greatest mission I think any Christian can be involved in right now.
Yeah, Trevor, what you said, get involved, and that's true. People have to get involved.
Hey, Trix, what about our trivia?
What it is.
You're not going to be able to spread the gospel if America goes down. I'll tell you that.
You're my Trump clock in the background. I'm sorry, I forgot to turn it off.
I told you to shut it off.
I know you did. I forgot.
What do you say? It's the greatest time ever?
Yeah,
we will make America great again. We got to wind down, and we even ran out of time for trivia. So I hope the chat will understand, and we can do it tomorrow and give the answer at the end of tomorrow. I'll do it at the beginning of the hour. I didn't want to take time away from Trevor, because this has been.
We got to get it back.
Yeah, it was great, Trevor.
This has been the best hour we've had in a long time, and we really appreciate you coming on. But we have to wind it down because we're after 10 already. But would you like to? Would you come back with us, Trevor?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and it's good to meet George's friends here. So
yes, pleasure meeting you, Trevor.
Yeah, well, thank you. And the same here. And
That's why they call me the Godfather. That's why they got under control.
Yeah, I learned a long time ago. You're always nice to be on the right side of George.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, okay, we're going to wind down then. And thank you so much, Trevor, for coming on. And everybody in the chat, we'll see you guys tomorrow for Friday. And so, bye.
Thank you. Love you, brother.
Bye,
Thank you very
everybody.
much for coming. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thanks for joining us. Hit the like button. Hit the
Oh,
like
yeah,
button.
hit the like button, everybody, please.
Hit the
Okay.
like button.
TrevorLoudon.com. That's where you go. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Trevor.
Okay.